Yo, what's going on, Blackish fam? I hope all is well in your corner of the world. Man, we've taken some time off, right? I had to get back into the working world. For those of you that aren't new to the channel, you'll see that the beard is gone, right? I had a beard that was coming down here. Unfortunately, I had to get back into the office, and you never know how people are going to take it. So I had to cut the beard. But really excited to dive back into Aesop Rock. We started going through Garbology. I'm really excited about this because I only heard what was this? I heard uh, Mystery Fish. Then I went to Kirby. Then I went to Daylight, and then I jumped right into Garbology. So I think I'm going to work my way backwards. I wanted to get to this since it's newer work. Try to break it down, go in depth with the different tracks. But I want to go back and start working through his previous work and just have a good understanding of who he is as an artist. I love what he represents, but I love that if you want to be a fan, you have to work for it, right? You have to understand the meaning. There's some songs, man. I was listening to, what was that, More Cycles a few days back, and I really loosely had a grasp as to what he was talking about, but I love that because things can be interpreted many different ways. So really excited to get into this one. This is All Day Breakfast. We're making our way. There's only a few tracks left on Garbology, so I'm really excited to get into this one. Let's get it. Ooh, he's got some jungle beats. Oh.
Important people take a mold of my footprint. It doesn't match a single on a track in your book ends. Fashion me a hoodie from the head of a bush pig. Push the red button, I am back on my bullshit.
Yo, oh, I like this. Yeah, his flow. Again, man, this guy's got so many different flows. I think he said important people
take a mold of my footprint.
Let's stop there. Take a mold of my footprint. He's saying like, yo, you might want to preserve this, right? You've never seen anything like this. Like if you find a Bigfoot footprint, what are you going to do? You're going to pour plaster in, right? You're going to try to get a mold of the footprint because it's so unusual, right? So he's saying like, yo, you might want to see this, right? Or he could be saying, yo, let me show you how to do this, right? Make a mold of my footprint so you see how this should be done, right? You walk in my path. But how is he defining important people? Is it other artists? Is he saying, follow, this is how you become a successful artist? Or are the important people his fans, right? That's who I would guess if I'd, just had to take a swing at it. But I like what he said. He said that important people take a mold of my footprint. It doesn't match a single fauna track in your bookends. So it's really important. I know at first glance, you think fawn. That's what I would think anyway, like a young deer. But he didn't say fawn. He said fauna. So it sounds like he's saying that I'm a different type of animal, something you haven't seen before, right? Like if you want to go in depth and fauna is, remember, a fawn is just a young deer, but fauna is it's all of animal life that's present in a particular region or time, right? The corresponding term for plants is flora, and for fungi, it's funga, right? So flora, fauna, funga. There are other forms of life that are referred to as biota, right? But when he's saying fauna, he's specifically talking about all animal life. And he's saying like, yo, there's not a single footprint, right? Again, I'm a different type of animal. I'm not what you're used to.
People take a mold of my footprint. It doesn't match a single on a track in your book ends. Fashion me a hoodie from the head of a bush pig. Push the red button, I am back on my bullshit.
I fashioned me a hoodie from the head of a bush pig. Ooh. Gotta love the hoodies, right? Especially in hip hop. But he's basically saying like, I want a hoodie or I love a hoodie. But from the head of a bush pig, I've come to see with Aesop that if he says bush pig versus any other animal, there's some sort of meaning. We might not know it right now. It might be 5 minutes later, or it might even be on another track. But there's a reason that he says bush pig. Now maybe maybe the head of a bush pig was said for a specific reason. Now, bush pigs, a lot of people don't know a lot about them, but they're quite social animals. They're found in groups that are called sounders. And even though there's normally only 3 to 5, they can go up to like 12 members in a group. But a typical group has a dominant male, it has a dominant female, and then there's other females and juveniles that really account for the rest. Now, they do have aggressive behavior when encountering excuse me, when encountering each other. They'll actually fight for large food sources. Though groups generally will keep away from each other. But all intruders that come near the sounder can be attacked. Even, anybody, right? They snort, they grunt. So I don't know if there's anything like, is this a metaphor for something? Now, I know they're essentially nocturnal. They hide in really dense areas during the day, and they're ugly as all hell, right? Their heads have what they call a face mask. It's like a pattern. It's a black, brown, white. There's different markings. Some of them might even look albino. So I don't know why he's referencing bush pig. Hopefully when we hear context and we let it ride a little bit, we can understand what might be happening. Now, I also love what he said. He said, push the red button. I'm back on my bullshit. Red button you normally see in cartoons or movies, right? It could be a real, fictional, or a figurative button, but it controls a function of critical importance, right? It's big and red for a reason. It's like quick identification. Like whatever you do not press the red button. Everybody's like, yeah, what happens if I press the red button, bro? Man, you don't want to know, right? But there's also a different meaning. Back in the day, like I was born in 82. I'm a kid of the 90s. Now, pushing the red button is iconic for recording. Because if you had a stereo system, if you had a boom box, whatever, when you press record, it was always a red button, and it would hold down record and play. And you had to do that if you wanted to listen to your favorite music over and over again, right? We didn't have iTunes. We didn't have LimeWire. We didn't have, any other program that came back then. So we didn't have CDs or anything. So, yeah, you were listening to the top 10 at, 7 o'clock at night, the top 10 songs. You're waiting like, oh, press record. They're like, all right, number 9 on our top 10 list is No Diggity by Blackstreet. So you'd have that on your recording, but then you would have it forever. You're recording over what was already there. But you had to press the red button. So he's saying, if push the red button, I'm back on my bullshit. He's saying like, yo, you're going to want to record this, right? I'm back rapping. I'm back in the booth. I'm back on my bullshit. Like, yo, let's get this, right?
Send me a hoodie from the head of a bush pig. Push the red button.
I'm back on my bullshit.
The back road throwing snow caps at the pulpit.
Now, that creates a visual too. He said, whether back row, when you think of somebody sitting back row, it's normally the bad students sitting in the back of the school bus, right? But look what he's doing. He's throwing snow caps. That's a candy that comes in a little dollar boxes at the dollar store. That's a cheap sugary candy that they call snow caps, because I think they're chocolate or mint chocolate with a little sugary top on it. But throwing snow caps at the pulpit. A pulpit is a raised platform that you would see in a church or a chapel. It's where the preacher would deliver a sermon, very similar to what a podium would be in a university setting. So if he's throwing snow caps at the pulpit, he's throwing something at the preacher, right, or the pastor, whatever you want to call him. You could see in his music where he talks about his, I don't want to say disgust with organized religion, but I would say it's safe to say he's definitely not a fan of your typical organized religion. I'm definitely getting that vibe without hearing that from him, though, right?
A backyard bat into the black of the solstice.
Backyard bat, is he talking about baseball or is he talking about a physical bat, right? Because black going under the solstice, it's different. Now, I also notice when he talks about birds in animals, it's normally symbolic, right? It's not something that's literal, but if he's talking about a raven, a crow, a rabbit, I noticed even with, there's different ways that you can explain symbolism depending on where you are in the world. I've also noticed that a lot of what seems to fit into his message is symbolism that comes from Native Americans. And if you ever read about dreams and dream interpretations, there's normally something, right? If you're Japanese, Chinese, if you're American, if you're Native American, what this might have meant in the past. So it's actually really interesting stuff. But I've noticed when doing these breakdowns that he normally mentions Native Americans. And I don't know, I believe I read that he was part Native American early on when I was doing Daylight. Would be right before Daylight. I was reading a little bit about him, and I believe, like, when he says that, I stole with the H, I stole from heritage, right? And I'm like, going into it, I'm like, man, he's referencing it, but also pay attention to the symbolism, and we can catch that. So I'd be really interested. Let's let it ride and hear if he's talking about an actual bat or backyard baseball.
Throwing snow caps at the pulpit, a backyard batting to the black of the solstice. Pulls rabbits out of hat and turns brats into sculptures.
Pulls rabbits out of hat and turns brats into sculptures. Wow, he's saying a lot. He's talking about the pastor or preacher, right? He's talking about organized religion. He sounds like he's saying they're full of shit, right? He's saying they pull rabbits out of hats. Normally meaning that, it's almost, I think of somebody pulling something out of their ass, right? It's just another way of saying that they're making up shit as they go along. He's saying turning brats into sculptures, mags to the road work. Wow. There's so many ways. I actually, I tried to get into Christianity just because that was in my community the most. And I went to go explore churches and whatnot. I remember once I actually heard they were going into detail, and the pastor was talking, he was calling religious figures brats because they didn't want to bend the rules. All right. When you think of a brat, you normally think of a kid, right? So when you hear a brat, it's like someone who always wants to get their way, right? The rules are bent in their favor. But they end up with the best of everything, right? It's like the middle child or so, right? But turns brats into sculptures. He could be talking about iconic religious figures that might be considered brats. Really deep. And we'll get back into this. I just wanted to let it ride, and I wanted to jump back to backyard bats. I don't think we properly broke that down. But I wanted to listen to that. He might not reference it again, right? He's talking about rabbits now. Obviously, rabbits are symbolic as well, but let's let it ride a little bit here.
Into the black of the solstice, pulls rabbits out of hat and turns brats into sculptures. Magi mags to the road work. Ghost world PME, a surgeon with the echo. Blindfolded.
See, he's a surgeon with the echo, right? Bats, they use that echolocation, right? But bats can't really see well, but I remember I watched something about this blind man who can walk without the blind cane because he was using a version of that, using sound to determine your distance from different things and your place in the world. So it sounds like he is talking about an actual bat. Where was that? Yeah, so whether back row throwing snow caps at the pulpit or backyard bat into the black of the solstice. Now, again, remember we talked about the bat having different meanings. So it depends on where you are in the world. Like, for instance, in Japan, bats and luck are pronounced the same. But Japanese people also believe bats are a symbol of chaos, unrest, or happiness. Right? In Chinese folklore, it's different. Bats hold a very important place, but the Chinese also eat bats because they believe it promotes longevity, right? That's probably also how COVID happened. But in short, we have to think, if we're doing a breakdown like this, what do bats symbolize? And I think that's going to vary from culture to culture. Like even Shakespeare used bats, right? And like Macbeth, I believe it was Macbeth. But the bat has the combined symbolism of a bird, which normally represents the soul, and that of the demon, since bats dwell in darkness and they're technically nocturnal. So the bat can mean anything, right? From a witch to a ghost, a devil, a vampire, but it could even be a tribal god. And like what I was saying is, we normally Aesop Rock. His symbolism, it's really closely tied to Native American symbolism. At least that's my interpretation from what I've seen. And again, this is the first full album I've heard of him. We only did Mystery Fish, Kirby, Daylight, and then jumped right into Garbology. So I don't know if there's themes like this over the course of his career. But going back to bats, among some Native American tribes, the bat was considered not necessarily evil, but it was a trickster. It was a trickster spirit. The bat, it would also represent like a shaman, if you would. But it would teach people to go into inner darkness. So he said, backyard bat into the black of the solstice. Now, there's different ways you can interpret that, and I just want to go over the different ways that you can interpret that so maybe it can help with your breakdown, right? Now, in the black, the expression from a business standpoint, you're normally talking about a company's profitability, like their current financial health. So a company is said to be in the black if it's profitable, or more specifically, if the company produces positive earnings after accounting for all of their expenses. That would be called in the black. But I think he's talking about going into the black of the solstice, right? So again, we can interpret that many different ways. But let's let it ride here.
Black of the solstice pulls rabbits out of hat and turns brats into sculptures. Magi mags to the road.
Yeah, see, now he's definitely talking, he's going into religion. Now, again, I once heard, I've heard of religious figures being called brats before. The religious leaders Jesus has to deal with, they know God, right? They say they know God. And they know and again, my religion is not my strong suit, but I try to get into specifically Christianity. But they say that all these religious figures say that if you want to know God, you have to go through him, right? So it's like you'll have to come to him through us. You'll have to do it our way. And what a lot of people say in church, depending on the church, right, is their way is the issue. The way I heard it when I heard this service is that they were comparing them to like deacons or some old school churches. They were saying that they're like spoiled children in the way that, and that their way is the only way, right? They're far more interested in doing things their way than they are in obeying God and doing things his way. So there's a lot of scripture that talks about brats in the Bible, but I've heard brats being referred to as, Jesus compares them to religious spoiled brats, not brats, right? But brats. They want to only do things their way. They're right. They're not willing to bend. They're not flexible. They're not meeting you halfway. It's organized religion. It's always been done this way. And I think that's what he might be getting to. Now he says magi before he says mags to the road work. I think everybody knows mag. Mag stands for mag wheels. It's short for magnesium, right? If you've ever rode a bike, you might have seen mag wheels. They normally have the or mag rims, if you would. It's not your typical 20 plus metal spokes. They normally might only have 3 to 5 spokes. They're a lot thicker. But I think there's some wordplay here because where he's from in New York, there's also another artist, underground artist, that's named Mags. And it stands for marijuana and good sex. So I think he's talking about, there could be a shout out to I know he's from the same area as him in New York. Before he moved, I believe he's in Oregon now, right? Or Portland, Oregon. But I think he's referencing his friend Mags. But again, it stands for marijuana and good sex. You can check it out. But he's also talking about mags to the road work, like putting the tire to the ground, right? Like you're putting your bike on the ground and moving forward. But magi, that's a little different. in singular, it would be magus. But magi, these are also called the wise men, right? In Christian tradition, there were the wise men who followed they followed the star to Bethlehem, right? And they wanted to see the infant Jesus as King of the Jews, right? But those men, they're called wise men. They're also called magi. So again, he's talking about religion here.
Pulls rabbits out of hat and turns brats into sculptures.
Magi.
To the road
Work.
Ghost world PME, a surgeon with the echo. Blindfolded, float around the Petco perfecto.
No, you gotta love his vote. Ghost World, that's a movie. That's a movie specifically about it's like teenage pop culture. Well, it wasn't really my thing, but Ghost World. Who are the? It's Rebecca, right? It's like this, snarky, ironic, teenage BS, right? Really shallow people. If I had to, I don't even think I finished the movie, so I can't really go into depth. It might have got amazing after I shut it off, but I doubt it. But Ghost World was showing like 90s pop culture. It was kind of, I don't know if any of you guys are as old as I am, but back in my day, we had to read Catcher in the Rye, right? Catcher in the Rye is showing life in the 50s. And there's still a lot of references to Catcher in the Rye. Like if you listen to Childish Gambino and you see him wearing the little hat, that's one of his alter egos. That's from Catcher in the Rye. We should do some breakdowns on Childish Gambino because there's a lot of symbolism in his, like, this is America, right? Where he's like shooting in the church and whatnot. Now, a lot of the symbolism there is just so strong. And I think a lot of people miss the message. But with something like this, I think that's what he's talking about. I think he's referencing the movie. But Ghost World PM, I don't know. I'm just jumping to Ghost World, the movie, because, his pop culture references, his age, it seems like it might be something he would reference, but that Ghost World PM, he could be talking about bats, right? Or bush pigs. They're both nocturnal. So he's saying Ghost World PM, right? And then he references bats again because he's saying he's a surgeon with the echo. Like a lot of times surgeon is like how I might use it. Like, man, these breakdowns, I get surgical with that shit, right? We break it down. We dissect it. So is he saying he's a surgeon with the echo? He could be saying that that he's extremely good with using that system, right? Like a bat would. The other thing I could think of is surgeon with the echo. Some people, when they, like me, I'm a bigger guy. I'm 6'2". I'm 350 pounds. I'm a big boy, right? Some people have to do a test that makes sure that they're safe to have surgery. And it's called an echo. It's an echocardiogram specifically. It uses sound waves. Think of an ultrasound, and it makes a moving picture of the heart. And it shows if your heart has problems pumping blood. But it can help determine if you're at risk for a heart attack or heart failure if they put you under for surgery. So that's how a surgeon in echo would relate. But that's called an echocardiogram. We'll listen for context to see if he's talking about something that's legit surgical. But even with him saying blindfolded, float around the Petco, perfecto, right? So as he is like talking about, like he's in ghost form after hours, right? As he's using that echolocating system like a bat does to get around. He's blindfolded and he's getting around the Petco. Why? Maybe he's getting some cat food for Kirby, right? He's a perfecto.
World PME, a surgeon with the echo. Blindfolded, float around the
Petco, perfecto.
Sending out an SOS and training for the longest night or any situation where invaders may import his eyes.
Ooh.
SOS and training.
I'm sending out an SOS and training for the longest night. Now, training. Are you a new ghost? Right? Why are you training? SOS, it's a lot of people get that wrong, right? They say it means save our souls. A lot of people, probably closer, would save our ship. But SOS, it's just an internationally recognized signal of distress in radio code. But it was used especially by ships, right, that needed a call for help. But SOS is actually Morse code. It's a sequence. It's not an abbreviation, but it's a sequence. But it now, because of its high profile use in emergencies, the phrase SOS itself has become more generalized to just indicate that there's a crisis or there's a need for some sort of action. But remember, it wasn't an abbreviation. It's not an acronym or so. It's just a sequence. It's a distinctive Morse code sequence. Those that don't know Morse code, I'm probably showing my age. I don't know Morse code, but I know what it represents and what it was used for. Training for where invaders might have clawed his eyes.
The echo, blindfolded, float around the Petco perfecto. I'm sending out an SOS and training for the longest night or any situation where invaders may have clawed his eyes out. T-Rex tooth necklace, smells like biofreeze and all day breakfast. Bass Pro, base slayer, pacemaker, cell phone.
See, now I've gotten hints of this throughout, not just this track, but he's referencing maybe his age in the game. Like it almost sounds like he's tooting his own horn, but he's also talking about longevity, possibly in his career, but also in life. Because listen to like what he's saying here, right? Let's go out. Maybe claw out his eyes, right? He's saying T-Rex tooth necklace. Who the hell has a T-Rex tooth, right? That's something that's you would have to be, early man to have found that. But normally when you take something and you put it around your neck, it's a reference to something you did yourself, right? It might be good luck, but it's more normally like when you kill a bear, right? Or a wolf, and you wear its fur around you to show that you're the man, or you wear that saber-tooth chain to show that you took down this animal. It's kind of the equivalent to a gangster, with teardrops that signify who he's killed and who he's lost, right? So when you wear a T-Rex tooth necklace, it means that you've taken down a beast before. You've taken down the ultimate beast. But it also means you're old as fuck, right? You're like a senior member. If you even have seen a T-Rex tooth, you're old as fuck, right? Not because you were around back then, right? You got to understand that how much time has passed between dinosaur and man. But even if you're finding one that's been exposed or that hasn't been altered, you're old as fuck, right? But he said smells like biofreeze. And again, I'm probably showing my age with this, but what's biofreeze? Biofreeze is it's a menthol formula that's it lasts for a long time, but a lot of people use it. It has a really distinct smell. Think of what used to be called Bengay. I don't even know if it's out there anymore, but it's like a cooling menthol formula that you might use for sore muscles, back aches, arthritis, and it has that menthol smell. When you play sports and you get older, like, man, I got to ice and get out the Bengay. Now, they're technically getting out what's called biofreeze, and it's just a way of easing your muscles and your joints. Old people smell like biofreeze. And all-day breakfast, and places incentivize seniors to come in and have a place to have community, right? So, now, for instance, McDonald's here in the States, they charge seniors like 40 or 50 cents for a cup of coffee, right? And you go to a McDonald's in the morning before pre-COVID, of course, and they're all sitting behind the McDonald's having old people conversations about their kids and their grandkids and medical conditions and the bus didn't pick them up and problems with their walkers. And so all day breakfast, the title of the track, seems like it's talking about old people, right? And how old people live their lives. Like, even look at the next few lines here. Bass Pro, base layer, pacemaker, right? A pacemaker is something you use if you have heart conditions. Either that or he's getting ready for a fight, right? T-Rex, what did he say before? Yeah, training. So I'm sending out an SOS, right? He needs help in training for the longest night. Why is it the longest night? What's about to go down? Or any situation where invaders may have clawed his eyes. Clawed his eyes out, right? T-Rex tooth necklace. He said it smelled like biofreeze, something to preserve or help him out with pain. All day breakfast, right? Older people. But look, he's also dressed like an older person, right? He's referencing things, but he's also talking about like going into combat. What are some things you need, right? That a base layer, right? I got the biofreeze ready in case I'm injured. My pacemaker, my cell phone. I got a med kit.
Like biofreeze and all day breakfast. Bass Pro base layer, pacemaker, cell phone, med kit. See you assholes in a tempest. Raised
Tempest.
Base layer, pacemaker, cell phone, med kit. See you assholes in a tempest.
Yeah, see, Tempest, that's a Shakespeare comedy. That's about it's about betrayal, right? Bad treatment. But it's also the development of magic arts, and Tempest really is a plot about revenge. Let's see you assholes and raise on 10-10 wins on the ones every 10 minutes. That's the radio station out there in New York. On the ones means that like 12:01, right? 12:11, 12:21, 12:31, 12:41, 12:51. Whatever within the hour, every time it ends, every 10 minutes, they're updating you with news. That's what it means. It's old school. They used to do that on a lot of AM radio. They do it still in the morning, right, on your morning commute. Every so many minutes they update you on the commute, so you know from the post office, blah blah blah. But this station specifically on the East Coast, I believe it's in New York where he's from, which would make sense. That's what he's talking about. Let's listen to it.
Pro base layer, pacemaker, cell phone, med kit. See you assholes in a tempest. Raised on 10-10 wins on the ones every 10 minutes. Big league chew and stupid pet tricks.
Big League Chew too. That's the old bubble gum, kind of like Bazooka. You guys know Bazooka, old school as well, where you open the bubble gum and there's a comic that's actually wrapped around the gum. That's old school, but Big League Chew is the same way. It's just old candy, old gum. It's old people stuff, right? It's like what is that? The Cracker Jack or something like that, like or black licorice, right? Like I like black licorice, like Good and Plenty, because my mom liked black licorice, Good and Plenty. But you'd give it to a kid today, and they're like, "What the fuck is it?" Right? But back in the day, you didn't have a lot of options for candy. So if you go to like your grandparent, they probably loved licorice because old school candy was just like licorice covered in whatever, right? Some hard, sugary coated substance of some sort, but they got familiar with the taste. Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste. You can die from eating too much licorice.
10 wins on the ones every 10 mins. Big league chew and stupid pet tricks. Now I'm green bonds up, red brick. Climb till he pluck a super giant out of peck.
See, now he's talking about age, right? He's talking about how things age. I'm green vines up red brick, right? So you think of a trellis, or you just think of vines that over time they go up and they spread out, all right? But it takes time to do that. Red brick climb till he pluck a super giant out of Pegasus. Wow. Now Pegasus, there's different. Pegasus is obviously from Greek mythology, but I think what he's talking about, he says pluck a super giant out of Pegasus. I think he's talking about a super giant star, right? And that's the constellation Pegasus. That would make more sense. And again, it's actually called 9 Pegasi, I believe. But it's a super giant star. That's where the constellation comes from. But obviously there's Greek mythology, Pegasus, and this actually ties in well also. So again, I'm just trying to explain the lyrics, so hopefully you can, this is an abstract breakdown. But if you're looking to break down this song, I want you to understand the different meanings that could be associated with this. Pegasus is associated with poetry, right? If you guys know Athena, right? The Muses, In one tale, he was tamed. Pegasus was tamed by the goddess Athena, and presented to the Muses. Right, the 9 daughters of Zeus, and was the other one? But basically, the goddess of memory represents the arts, including music and poetry. Music and poetry, right? You want to tie that back into exactly what Aesop Rock is about. This is poetic in nature, right? This is music. Just sick references in this, man. Again, it's like Trivial Pursuit or Jeopardy, but it's that level of a breakdown. This is just incredible when how he just puts these words out there, and there's so many interpretations. I don't think I've ever heard music like this.
Tricks. Now I'm green, bonds up, red brick, climb till he pluck a super giant out of Pegasus. Blow the house down, easy peasy. It's the digging a disaster, pulling reefer at his beanie.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice, right? I'm a huff, I'm a puff, I'm a blow your house down, right? No 3 Little Pigs face. But he's an easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? No big deal.
Now I'm green, bonds up, red brick, climb till he pluck a super giant out
of Pegasus.
Blow the house down, easy peasy. It's the deacon of disaster, pulling.
The deacon of disaster. Ooh, I like it. Now, deacon. Now, in Greek, I believe deacon is means more or less helper. But obviously, deacon, going back to Christianity, it's under the priest or pastor, and I believe there's one other person, and then there's a deacon. It's like the lowest level of leadership in a church, specifically a Christian church. So, yeah.
Out of Pegasus, blow the house down, easy peasy. It's the deacon of disaster, pulling reefer at his beanie. Handwriting, born original graffiti, disobedient thereafter. Kid is Veni Vidi Vici.
Ooh.
UFO sighting, handwriting, born original graffiti, disobedient.
Bro, I took a hip hop class at Northern Illinois University, and what you have to check out these different skateboarding videos, graffiti videos, the origins of hip hop, and man, it's just really interesting to understand how hip hop got started. Like, you can actually pinpoint the exact house party where hip hop got started, and the whole blackout in the Bronx and 77. Man, there's just so much history that if you really are a fan of hip hop, you really should know, right? It really helps with these breakdowns as well when they reference certain things. Because, I learned a lot about graffiti. I never was really a tagger myself, but there's graffiti or tagging, how, kind of interchangeable. But graffiti is one of the elements of hip hop. And it's important to know different styles of graffiti, right? He's talking about regional graffiti. I'm not there's normally what I would consider top 10 graffiti styles. I'm not an expert by any means, but I know there's a sticker, right? What they normally call a slap, right? Where you just go up, bop. It's already like something that can be pre-made. There's a poster, which is called a paste up. You can do a stencil. They have what they call heaven or heaven spot, right? There's Wild Style. That's just like the name of the documentary. If you check out Wild Style, it's actually on YouTube. There's throw ups. What is it? Well, I know there's throw ups, right? It can be done quickly, but a throw up is a more sophisticated version of a tag. And then, of course, there's a tag. That's the easiest, normally the simplest style of graffiti, but that's really where it all started. I'm sure there's a lot more than that. I'm not an expert by any means, but man, it is an art, right? You can take, it's not just on the side of trains. There's graffiti that's in galleries, right? It's another form of expressing yourself, just like hip hop, and it's one of the elements of hip hop. And you can trace it back to like Africa Bambaataa. There's a lot of history in it, and it goes even deeper than that.
They pluck a super giant out of Pegasus, blow the house down, easy peasy. It's the digging a disaster, pulling reefer
out his beanie.
Handwriting, born original graffiti, disobedient thereafter. Kid is Veni Vidi Vici.
Yo, we got to get into that because that's sick too. Because this is what he said. He said handwriting. What was it? Handwriting born original graffiti, disobedient thereafter. Kid, it's Veni Vidi Vici, right? Veni Vidi Vici It's Latin, right? And the verbs are what would it be? Venire, videre, vincere, right? It means to come, to see, to conquer. It's military terminology. You can actually trace this back to King Caesar. I don't know if that's the original origins, but that's something that King Caesar used it's more than to come, to see, to conquer, even though that's how people use it now. But it's also to swiftly conquer, right? Do it with ease. Like he's saying, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right?
Handwriting born a regional graffiti, disobedient thereafter, kid is Benny Vici.
Handwriting born a UFO sighting. I ain't down with Jack and Styles. I'm Jack and Klaus with silver linings. Listen, it's been abandoned.
Yo, I don't think I've ever heard one of his songs that had a feature. Again, I'm almost all the way through Garbology, and we've only done a few other tracks, so I don't know how common this is. I don't even know this guy's name. Is it? I think Blockhead specifically the musical side of this, but I'm gonna have to double check who this feature is. But what did he say? He said, handwriting born of UFO sighting. I ain't down with jacking styles. I'm jacking clouds for silver linings. The silver lining, it's a metaphor for optimism. Right? It's saying that there's even something negative could have a positive aspect to it. And of course, there's a movie, which this song came out after the movie, but the movie has a star Bradley Cooper. He plays a man that has bipolar, right? But he's being released from a psychiatric hospital, and he connects with the old stereotypical quirky young woman who's Jennifer Lawrence, who's also struggled with mental health issues. I believe her husband or boyfriend died, right? But that's the movie, A Cloud for Silver Linings Playbook. But a silver lining, I think they're just talking about the optimism aspect, not necessarily the movie.
Thereafter, kid is Benny Vici.
Handwriting born a UFO sighting. I ain't down with Jack and Styles. I'm Jack and Klaus with silver linings. Listen, fans, to my advantage, been abandoned, law abiding. I'm the best. Panic when the planets are colliding. Fresh start for the convict. No course, come and get dipped in the solvent. Fabric on my tailor-made garment. Torn sail, third rail, tail of a comet.
See, a lot of it didn't need. He said, what did he say? He said, hey, listen, fam, to my advantage, been against, right? Oh, been abandoned, law abiding, right? Like I haven't been a law abiding citizen. He said he's the baddest, right? He said, I don't panic when the planets are colliding. Fresh start for the convict, right? But I don't know what he's saying here. Well, we can break this down. Torn sail, third rail, tail of a comet. So torn sail, obviously, I think it's talking about things that are destruction. Where you see something bad coming. Like if you have a torn sail and you're on a sailboat, shit's about to get ugly, right? It's about to be a bad day. Third rail, I know third rail, there's two different meanings. The urban meaning, I'm from Chicago, we have a subway system. We have a lot of elevated lines as well for trains. You don't touch the third rail. A lot of people, when you're young, you realize you can cross train tracks even on an elevated platform. It sounds very, it's a death-defying stunt, but if you know how to walk on train tracks, you have to, and you do if you grow up in an urban setting, you avoid what's called the third rail. There's two rails that a train will run on that keeps it in line, but the third rail carries the electrical current. So if you step on that third rail, you're going to die, bro. Right? You got electric rolling through your body. Now, if you're also urban, you know some other things. Now, you can also know that you don't have to necessarily die if you fall on the train tracks or if you step on the third rail. Again, I'm not a mechanical engineer or engineer at any level, but to die, you can land. Let's say if you have your shoes on, obviously, you can actually land as long as both feet are on the third rail. I don't believe you'll die. It's when one foot is off the rail. Like, let's say one foot is on a ledge, one foot's on the rail. Now you're going to die. You're going to be electrocuted. But you can also do other things like wearing rubber boots, right? Thick rubber boots. If you see people working on a train track, they're prepared so they can touch that third rail if for an emergency, but you still shouldn't touch it. But again, it's another way you can die, just like a torn sail. Now, from a political perspective, again, I studied political science, public law at Northern Illinois University. The third rail is of a nation's politics. It's a metaphor for discussing certain issues that are very controversial, right? They're charged the same way that a third rail would be electrical, right? It's untouchable. It means that you're going to suffer politically if you bring this up at the wrong time, right? Like Kamala Harris talking about her history as a prosecutor, as an attorney general, locking up people for smoking weed, and then laughing about her smoking weed herself, right? That was a very bad time for her, right? It's something like Hillary Clinton bringing out or Donald Trump, right? Talking about, loving, formerly being a Democrat, or how religious is he, or grabbing bitches by the pussy, right? Or things like that. But when it's more talking about like DACA or the Dreamers, or something that's or abortion rights, right? Where people they're clearly on one end, there's no in between. So it's something that you avoid unless you have a new perspective or point on it, or you're speaking to a demographic that's going to be on your side, right? So yeah, let's get back to it.
Fabric on my tailor-made garment, torn sail, third rail, tail of a comet. Me and my counterpart come to put it down over the counter at your local mart. Take your pound of flesh, but keep around the hard for.
Ooh, come to put it down. What do you say on the counter? Take your pound of flesh, but keep from anything around the heart. Now, if you say that someone's demanding their pound of flesh, you're basically, they're saying that they insist on getting something that they're entitled to, right? Even though it's going to cause distress to the person that it's demanded from. It's not necessarily taking a pound of your own flesh, but you're demanding something that's not in their best interest, right?
Put it down over the counter at your local mart. Take your pound of flesh, but keep from anything around a hard far. Go kaput, I stomp a foot.
Before I go kaput, a lot of people will say kaput, right? It just means broken, useless, no longer working. I believe that's actually German, if I'm not mistaken. But that's basically means that, before it goes kaput, right? Is before it breaks.
Me and my counterpart come to put it down over the counter at your local mart. Take your pound of flesh, but keep from anything around a hard far. Go kaput, I stomp a foot and split the ground apart.
Ooh, I stomp a foot and split the ground apart. So he's all powerful?
There is only one degree of certainty. You won't find me training using anything with circuitry. Earth and out of space, I done a courtesy in case the whole place, just in case of emergency.
When you case somewhere, you're preparing for something, right? Like you might case a store before you burglarize or rob the store, so you understand the workings of that store. So if he's casing something, he said, I cased the whole place in case of emergency.
Don't ask me why I'm acting rough for yo. I'm not the one that killed the buffalo.
Again, the Native American references, right? In our history, yes, U.S. history that they don't talk about in school, American military commanders ordered troops to kill buffalo. Buffalo used to be all across the United States, and Native Americans used buffalo. That was a really important source of food, but it wasn't just food. When they killed buffalo, they used every part of the buffalo. But American military commanders, they said, hey, excuse me, if we can eliminate the food source, we can eliminate Native Americans. We can control them. So they started to put a dollar amount. And keep in mind, this is when the economy was jacked up. But you can actually make quite a bit of money by killing buffalo. So all these men would kill 50, 100, hundreds of buffalo, sometimes 50 in a day. And they were paid according to it. And of course, buffalo don't reproduce all that quick, right? So I believe right now in the world, there's something like 20 or 30,000 buffalo. But there used to be millions. And the Native Americans, again, this was a really important source of food for them. So when they were trying to kill the buffaloes, they were trying to kill and eliminate the expansion of Native American tribes. They were trying to control them and get them in areas where they can hunt them and push them into areas that the U.S. really didn't want, which they called reservations.
Popping and approximate a tub that's sold based on only oxygen. I'm known to blow a cloud of smoke.
Yo.
I just rode in town a couple hours ago. Not too many and already I done found a glow. Swam the fountain, climbed the holy mountain, spent the pot of gold. Low-key, but the homie asked me how did it go.
Yo. Is that it? We're gonna have to run it back. I want to run it back. Again, this is something where...
All day breakfast.
There we go.
All day breakfast.
All day breakfast.
He's forever eating, huh? Let's run it back. I just want to hear it one time all the way through and make sure we didn't miss anything. Because, man, if you just run it back, it'd be like, what? I didn't hear that.
Sports and leisure.
Which could also...
Important people take a mold of my footprint. It doesn't match a single for an attractive
Right.
book.
I'm a different animal.
From the head of a bush pig. Push the red button. I am back.
I'm a different kind of animal, right? And I want another animal to make a hoodie from. Very similar to how Native Americans might have used the buffalo, right? Back in the day. Yeah, get ready to record this. I'm back on my bullshit, right? Man, against religion, right? I'm throwing things at religion. I'm going against religion because they're just pulling stuff out of their ass. They're making magic and making up stories as they go along. And they're turning what we would consider brats into sculptures and saying that we should worship them. Like these three kings, right? And following the star to Bethlehem and giving presents. Why are we making up these stories as we go along? So he says, man, I'm getting back on my bike, on my mags, but also a reference to marijuana and good sex, the artist from New York. Mags to the road work.
Ghost World, PME, a surgeon with the echo.
Ghost World, he's a surgeon with the echo. He's saying his echolocation, right? He's referencing bats because he's blindfolded. He's talking about floating around the Petco, right?
Blindfolded, float around the Petco perfecto. I'm sending out an SOS and training for the longest night or any situation where invaders may employ.
Yeah, he's getting ready. He's like, yo, I need help with this. Maybe he needs help, which is why he's bringing on a feature, right? It would make sense. Like, yo, I'm sending out an SOS. I'm training for what's going to be a very long night or a situation where invaders may have clawed his eyes.
Put his eyes out. T-Rex tooth necklace. Smells like biofreeze and all day breakfast.
He's like, yo, I'm old, but I'm still getting ready for battle, right? I got my T-Rex tooth necklace. I smell like biofreeze and Bengay. And he's talking about an all-day breakfast, right? Which is typical with senior citizens. Bass Pro base layer. See you assholes in a tempest, right? Again, tempest, there could be different meanings, but I think he's talking about, I don't know. But we obviously went into the Shakespeare comedy about betrayal, right? About magic arts and revenge.
Raised on 10 wins on the ones every 10 mins. Big league chewing stupid pet tricks.
Old school. Now he's old school. It's easy for him. He's smoking too. Yeah, he's old school.
I ain't down with jacket styles. I'm jacking clouds with silver linings. Listen, fams, to my advantage. Been abandoned, law abiding. I'm the baddest. I don't panic when the planets are colliding.
Big boy talk.
Fresh start for the convict. No course. Come and get dipped in the salt.
Come get it if you want it.
Fabric on my tailor-made garment. Torn sail, third rail, tail.
You'll die.
Me and my counterpart come to put it down over the counter at your local mart. Take your pound of flesh, but keep from anything around a hard far. Go kaput or stop before to split the ground apart. There is only 1 degree of certainty. You won't find me training using anything with circuitry. Far as earth and out of space, I done a courtesy in case the whole place just in
case of emergency.
Don't ask me why I'm acting rough for yo. I'm not the one that killed the buffalo. Based on only optics, I can pop and then approximate a tub that's sold. Based on only oxygen, I'm known to blow a cloud of smoke. I just rode in town a couple hours ago. Not too many and already I done found a glow. Swam the fountain, climbed the holy mountain, spent the pot of gold. Would've kept it.
And not too many and already I done found the glow. Swam the fountain, climbed the holy mountain. Is he talking about like a fountain of youth? Right? He's talking about his age, and he's talking about all these things as an older person going into battle. Is he battling his age? Is he battling getting older and staying relevant? And he's saying like, yo, I could tear it up. I could attack. I've won all the battles I've been in, but I'm calling out an SOS. And now his boy is talking about, I've found the glow. I swam the fountain. I climbed the holy mountain. Spent the pot of gold and would have kept it low key, but the homie asked me how'd it go.
Low key, but the homie asked me how'd it go.
Yo, I'm loving this. Sick. And yo, man, if you're a fan of Aesop Rock, you're a fan of Garbology, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Sick. I'm going to get right into the next track.
All day breakfast.
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 Yo, I'm going to get right into the next track. And I think at the end, I'm going to try to listen to them all together and see if I can pull any context out of that as well. Man, if you're a fan, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue going through Aesop Rock's work. And after Garbology, we're going to go to his previous album and we're going to work backwards. Let's get it.